Order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, be with us this evening as we do the business for the city and the community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
This is item C, approval of agenda. So this is to approve the agenda for February 9th, 2026 regular planning commission meeting.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for February 9th, 2026.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is item D, citizens' comments. So at this point, Mr. Chair, you're welcome to open citizens' comments. Anyone is welcome to speak. And they must state their first and last name and where they reside. I believe everybody's here for an agenda item except for our illustrious council in the back. Would you guys like to comment during citizens' comments?
Appreciate you guys drilling up some good weather here this week to make it get out and play some golf. So
Is that for you?
thank you.
All right, we'll open and close citizens' comment.
Very good.
Don't put any of that in
This item C, consent agenda. So this is to approve the minutes from January 12th of 2025. Just as a reminder, we had a vote on the chair and vice chair. We had a preliminary plat for the City Public Works Building, a final plat for City Public Works Building, preliminary plat for the North Park, final plat for the North Park, preliminary plat for Garden City Center 3rd Edition, the final plat for Garden City Center 3rd Edition, site plan for Evans Building Company, and site plan for Brandon Wilkins Office of Construction Equipment Rental, and a rezone for Evans Building Company.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 12th, 25 meeting.
2026, sorry.
I'll second
It is 20.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Old business, there is none. New business, this is G1. This is a site plan for the Public Works Building. So the city has partnered with Hutton Construction to build a new Public Works Building on city-owned land north of the wastewater treatment plant. The building will be built on the recently platted land and will be used to house the borough staff within the department. The building will ideally serve to fulfill the purposes and needs of the Public Works Department for some time to come. The building facade needs to be approved by the Planning Commission since it is an all-male building. The Planning Commission is reviewing the site plan for the new Public Works Building. We do have Jason Colley, he's the Public Works Director, and we do have Hutton as agent for the applicant. So you guys have any questions for Public Works or Hutton, they are present. And these are just some numbers for the site plan. And this is the layout. 199th is over here. The entrance will be right over here, and then this would be the middle building, obviously, and then we have the parking right adjacent to it. The detention pond would be in the northeast corner.
I did have a question. Is the designated parking there for the employees, or is that for office people?
It would be generally for employees, but is there any additional parking available for, I don't know, visitors? I'm not sure if there'd be a lot of visitors to Public Works.
So that would be mainly for visitors, and when we have conferences in the conference room and such. So our employees will have some parking that they can do inside the yard or maybe by the salt room and such. Is kind of what the general idea will be.
Because there's really no designated places. for
There won't be a
employees.
designated place at this point.
This is a concept rendering.
It'll be gravel road in or pavement?
Gravel.
Gravel.
Gravel to pavement here, I believe. This is going to be concrete and gravel, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So the only concrete portion would be the parking aspect of it. But this is pretty impervious as it is, and so I still think there's going to be that detention to offset that. Financially, non-legal considerations, there are none. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the site plan for the Mountain Public Works Building. As mentioned, if you guys have any additional questions for Hutton or Public Works, feel free.
What's the plan for the building that's there now?
There is no building there now.
The one that the south.
The salt one, the salt shed building? Or are you talking about the existing building that Public Works has?
Yes.
So the existing building, we're planning
Yes,
on.
you can come up if you want.
Okay.
They don't usually, but I don't know.
Yeah. So the existing building at this point will be utilized for storage and such. We have had discussions amongst us ourselves as well, as needing some place to do mechanical work and such. That would keep us out of the facility off that new concrete and such, so like things like oil changes and such may be done in that older building. And that also opens us up for more storage as well. Is mainly the biggest idea for that building. It's not really large enough to house our employees, like we said, but it's definitely large enough to house more equipment or anything that falls inside of needing more storage.
I think the police utilize the building on 199th as well for impounding ammunition.
Yeah, the police actually use the part that we get from the township, from Attica Township. They utilize some of that storage for evidence, and they have an evidence room in that. Currently, we utilize that to store some of our heavy equipment and also our signs, and also some barricades and such.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for the Goddard Public Works Building.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or,
Very good. You guys welcome to stay for the rest of the night, or if not, have a good evening. This is G2 site plan for Prairie Land Partners John Deere building. So Tesserae submitted a site plan on behalf of Prairie Land Partners. We consider for building a John Deere facility on the 215th and US 54 on the southeast corner. The building is anticipated to be John Deere equipment sales and maintenance facility. The land is going through the planning process today as well. You guys will see a preliminary and a final plat for today. Planning Commission is reviewing a site plan for the new John Deere building. The site area is around 26.19 acres. Lot coverage is around 28.5. The building area itself seems to vary between 70 and 73,000 square feet. Building height is 34. We have 2 ADA parking, 75 standard for a total of 77. Here's some concept renderings, and the full site plan is included in your agenda packet. Financial and legal considerations, there are none. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the site plan for the John Deere Prairie Land Partner building. We do have Tesserae here, I believe. Okay. But if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
You want to set them?
No, I do not.
You good?
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for the John Deere Prairie Land Partner Building.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Item G3, this is a site plan for the Goddard North Park building. So city has partnered with Baughman Company and Schaefer Architecture to design a new park area on the southwest corner of 183rd and Maple. Design is largely an open concept, however, there is a main building that will have occupancy and a formal commercial review process if necessary. This building is being presented today for review of the site plan before it moves on to MABCD for architectural engineering review for the structural, mechanical, and plumbing. This land was replatted on December 8th of 2025. So the Planning Commission is reviewing the site plan for the new North Park building, which will sit on the southwest corner of 183rd and Maple. Here's some general information as pertains to that particular site plan. Here's a concept rendering of the main building.
Micah, there was 2 pictures sent. I don't know if these are 2 options that are being looked at, or if it's one that's a?
No, this one, what you're probably looking at is this picture here, and then another picture with the wrap being removed, so you're just seeing the I-beams.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's at the same building, it's just one of them showing the interior, what the composition of the actual structural material is, and then the wrap around the structural material. This is a better concept that actually shows kind of the layout, the big picture layout. The center of it being the pond, that's going to be the natural water feature that really emphasizes that, and then that building which you're looking at is over here on the north side. Financial and legal considerations, there are none. It is recommended the planning commission approve the site plan for the North Park building. They are here if you guys have any questions for them. None?
Make a motion to approve the site plan for the Goddard North Park building.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Moving on, this is item G4. This is the preliminary plat for Prairie Land Partners. So Smith & Oaks has submitted a preliminary plat for the AVE PLP addition generally located off the southeast corner of 215th and US 54. There is only one proposed lot. It's around 24.57 acres for an industrial building. There are no easements proposed, since all the lines that will feed the site will be private service lines. Detention is proposed in the southeast corner of the lot, which accounts for the amount of impervious surface being proposed. The city has not had the stormwater plan fully reviewed yet, and will be asking the planning commission to approve the plat contingent upon final stormwater review by the city. BHC is reviewing, and we did get some feedback today based on the detention that's being proposed by Smith & Oaks and Tesserae for the project. It's just at this time, we're still going through some of the details about pond sizing, impervious surface calculations, and coefficients. So we haven't fully vetted all of the stormwater yet, but it's still being proposed. Planning commission is reviewing a preliminary plat for the AVE PLP addition, one lot, 24.57 acres, no easements proposed. Detention pond is sized to accommodate the amount of impervious surface in theory, and so we're just asking that it be approved contingent upon that final stormwater. North is facing this way, and so 215 is over here and 54 is over here on this side. Detention pond will be on that southeast corner as mentioned.
Where's that detention pond gonna dump to when it goes up? Gonna go right into the addition south of it?
Actually, that was one of the questions that came up, was that is it going to be held and then metered out? Typically what you have is a detention pond that's held and it'll meter out slowly over time as a natural discharge on the southern land. So it'll usually have a weir and it'll just discharge onto the land to the south. That being said, that wasn't really called out on the detention on the stormwater plan, and so BHC called that out as a note that they don't have a weir, they don't have a form of discharge, and so is the discharge just going to be a blanket sheet discharge, or is it going to be a concentrated discharge? So that has to kind of be addressed. How are they going to discharge the water after it's captured in the detention pond? So that has to be addressed. Typically, if there was no building and there was no detention pond, the water would just flow to the south. And so since they're capturing it and it's being metered out, that's still considered generally acceptable because you haven't changed the natural flow of the direction of the water, but now it becomes concentrated, so is that considered acceptable practice? Generally, it's considered acceptable practice, but they're still reviewing that and vetting that out.
And how is that gonna get across the rails for trails out there? Is there pipes going underneath of it, or is it gonna?
Well, this right now, it'll just be open prairie. This is open ag land. So the rest of the ag land goes all the way down here before it hits trails. So this water will leave this site and just travel through the natural waterways on the land. I think at some point it actually travels onto a channel down here and travels south, but I couldn't tell you definitively.
There's a ditch along Rails to Trails.
Is there?
But yeah, just going east and west, so I'm not sure of anything that flows under
Yeah, I couldn't tell you if there's a box culvert there or anything for that nature, but that's something that they're looking into. But for the most part, if it is discharged from this side, it would just be on ag land. And it'll run on ag land for a while before it hits the trail.
Do we need to wait on approving the final plat before we get the final engineering review on the stormwater?
No, you're welcome to, the way this is written is that you would approve it contingent upon the engineers vetting the stormwater. And then the final plat would be the same thing, approving it contingent upon the engineers vetting the stormwater. And then Jamie Coyne, since he's the chair of the planning commission, he wouldn't sign the Mylar until the engineers are satisfied with the stormwater. So they would go through that whole process, and then it would go before city council for the final plat. City council can approve it. They can also technically approve it contingent upon the engineering for the stormwater. And then after they've approved that, once the Mylar is printed, it comes to my office. They, you know, the mayor doesn't need to sign it, and Jamie doesn't need to sign it. The attorneys, nobody needs to sign it until engineering has been satisfied for stormwater. That's typically how we do it. And usually we try to have it fully vetted before it comes to planning commission, but sometimes engineers argue, and so we try to figure out, you know, the coefficient calculations that they're running. One engineer thinks it's sufficient based on Sedgwick County regulations. Other engineers feel like it's not sufficient based on county regulations, and so they have to kind of come to a conclusion. Is gravel the same as concrete? Is asphalt the same as gravel? You know, what does that look like for stormwater? And so since they trying to figure that out, they have provided that detention, and they feel like Smith and Oaks and Tesserae feel like it's sufficient. BHC is saying that they don't feel like, as representation for the city, it's sufficient, and they're trying to work that out. So that's just, at this point, I don't think there will be major changes to the plat. The detention pond is not going to move. The lots aren't going to change. There's not going to be proposed additional easements. There's not going to be anything that changes on the face of the plat. It's just the background information for the stormwater coefficients that could change.
That's all I had.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the AVE-PLP addition contingent upon final engineering review of the stormwater.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. This is G5. This is the final plat for Pearland Partners. It is exactly the same as the previous one. It's just now stripped of some of the additional details that only the county would like to see without the contour lines, but you still have the same layout. I should mention that we did require Smith and Oaks to give us additional right-of-way. I should have mentioned that previously, but we are requiring them to give us additional, so it's 50 feet. They were giving us 40. We're asking for 50, so additional 10 feet, and then we're asking for additional 35 feet here as it bumps out, touches 54 for future turn lanes. And so we asked them to dedicate that to us for future turn lanes and increasing to 15 as we move into the future, and so they've agreed to that. It is recommended to approve the final plat for AVE-PLP, once again contingent on final engineering review.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for AVE-PLP addition and contingent upon final engineering review of the stormwater.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. This is a staff report, so periodically I like to inflict data upon you in the form of suffering, and so right now this is the month of January by year and new building permits, so just as a reflection, how did the month of January go for 2026 and compared to other years for the city of Goddard? So overall, pretty good. In 2019, we had 0, 2020, we had 5, and this is only for single family and 2 family. This doesn't include industrial, commercial, or anything of that nature. But 5 for 2021, 7 for 2022, 5 for 2023, and then we had 26 for 2024 because we had a lot of plats that were approved in previous years, and then a lot of permits came online. 7 for 2025, and then we have 11 for 2026. So all in all, we're above average. So we're doing pretty good for the month of January, and February is looking to emulate January, so that's pretty good. This is single-family detached new starts by month and city. So I took out Wichita because it's always an outlier statistically. And so when you look at it by color, I marked Goddard as yellow, and then I put a trend line on it as well, so you can kind of see the up and down as we move forward throughout last year. This is January 2025 through December 2025, and so we're always competing with some of our bigger host cities, our bigger cities, competitive cities like Andover and Derby. Mays is one of our bigger competitors as well. They have quality school districts. We're always competing with them for single family starts. But it's interesting just to see that up and down as things move forward, because permits, when interest rates are low, new builds like custom builds tend to increase and spec homes tend to decrease, and then when rates increase, spec homes increase and custom builds decrease. And so just kind of interesting to see with custom homes, they can take longer, maybe 8, 9, 10 months to build from start to finish, where spec homes take about 5, 6, 7 months to build. And so you can actually have more permits issued if there's more spec homes. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have more sales, but you just have more builds. And so that's kind of interesting to look at. These are all the single-family detached permits that were pulled by city, with the exception of Wichita, from 2000 to 2025, so the last 25 years. Andover obviously had a large start. We're the yellow line once again, just to kind of call us out as we move forward up and down. And so it's interesting just to see that big boom that happened in 2000, and then as we have these ebb and flows and peaks and gullies as we move through the economy with different mortgage rates and the 10-year treasury notes. And so we like to kind of compare that, because the 30-year mortgage likes to follow the 10-year treasury note. And so what you're seeing is that when inflation increases, or when there's concern that inflation is going to increase, people will dump the 10-year treasury note. And if they dump the 10-year treasury note, then the yields on the 10-year treasury note increase because people are selling them off. And so that yield increases, and when the yield increases, then the 30-year mortgage rate increases. And so as concerns about inflation happen, then you're also seeing mortgage rates increase. And so that's kind of where you'll see a slowdown in the permits being pulled and issued as people can, as you're seeing that concern about inflation. And then as the economy contracts, then people start deciding to invest in the 10-year treasury note. And as they invest in the 10-year treasury note, the yields decrease, and then the 30-year mortgage follows that 10-year treasury note decrease, and mortgage rates drop. And so then more people start investing into the economy again, and they start buying houses and issuing debt and selling that, and the banks sell that debt on the secondary mortgage market. And this is kind of what you see as it goes up and down. But it's just really startling to see that the 10-year treasury note and the 30-year mortgage rate follows so concisely, that they just parallel each other over the last 25 years. And that yellow line again is our permits over the last 25 years. And when you compare that, it's just kind of interesting to see that when you look at the Case-Shiller index and the 30-year mortgage rates and the real median household income, which just real means it's adjusted for inflation. If I said nominal household income, it means it hasn't been adjusted for inflation. If I say real, that means it has been adjusted for inflation. But in 2000, the average home roughly in Central County was $100,000, and the median household income was roughly $44,145. And so as a percentage of gross monthly, that's about 20% of a mortgage for that house. And so more people in 2000 were able to afford a house at $100,000, even though the median household income was only $44,145. More people were able to afford it. And then what's interesting about the Case-Shiller index is that they track the same home over the 25 years. So it's not just an average of all the homes, it's an average of those specific homes. So they will track one particular house and multiple particular houses, and they'll track it over that 25-year period. And so the same house in 2000 that was $100,000 is equivalent to $328,000 today. It's the exact same house. And in the Case-Shiller index, they strip out any modifications like additional bedrooms or anything like that. And they just leave it as is. The base rate has tracked over time. And this is just real estate appreciation over time. And so that's fascinating to see, especially because you can see what was happening as it was appreciating greatly and it dropped out after the bubble burst, and then it appreciated again really rapidly. And then the percentage of gross income fluctuates as it relates to the median household income, and then of course we have the mortgage rates, and we took that as a percentage. But the same house, if somebody stepped into 2000 and bought the $100,000 house and then sold it, and then came back 25 years later to buy the exact same house with the same median household income, their gross monthly rate to be able to afford that same house would be 39%. So it's gone up 19%. So they're not able to, assuming they had the same median household income now that they did back then, they won't be able to afford the same house they bought 25 years ago, which is really kind of interesting. We get the 30-year fixed mortgage rates from the Federal Reserve economic data, and real median household income also came from Federal Reserve economic data. The home values came from Case-Shiller Index, and the percentage of gross income is just a calculation that's used. So I did the same kind of mental gymnastics and said, okay, let's take the last 25 years, and let's just project it into the next 25 years. And so we just got a building permit last week from Liberty Homes, Liberty Communities, for $210,000. So I said, okay, median household income is $65,462 now, so let's just use the same median household income, and let's just assume that the mortgage rates stay at 5.5% for the next 25 years, which is unrealistic, but let's just assume it's 5.5%, even though it's not 5.5% now. Let's just project and say it's 5.5% for the next 25 years. And so at $65,008, somebody could potentially afford a Liberty home because it's only 22% for the gross monthly income. But that same Liberty home, assuming the same type of real estate appreciation, in the next 25 years would be $690,000. And so even though median household income adjusted for inflation would increase, it still would only be $89,000 by 2051, which is only 53%. So they're not going to be able to afford the same house, a Liberty home at $210,000 now. In 25 years, they're not going to be able to afford the same house. So that's just kind of interesting. So as we look at housing typologies and diversification of housing types and taking into account inflation, and a big one obviously being the appreciation of real estate, these are things that we like to say this falls on the heads of the Planning Commission and City Council as we try to draft policy and ideas that try to combat some of these concerns that we have as we move forward into the future. But it's just kind of interesting to look at. At least for me, it's interesting to look at. So with that, I'll move on to Planning Commissioner comments.
Monument signs on the buildings that were sold, Vermeer?
Yes, Vermeer. So yes, we still are asking Vermeer to have a monument sign, and that was conveyed to them before they purchased. That was for the RV Kelson, so they're going to have to convert to a monument sign. Alrighty. No comments. Next regular Planning Commission meeting will be March 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
Make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.